So I'm just going to do a quick introduction into After Effects, and I have put the files and folders for this onto the shared drive, so if you want to follow along with exactly the same media, you will find it on the Media Student Share in O1 Animation in the folder called AE Introduction 18. Now you will need to copy all of those files and folders onto your Scratch disk in a folder so that you're working on the computer rather than working across the server. Okay, so back to After Effects. Once you've opened it up, you'll find you've got your project bin panel over here. This area is where you'll get your main preview, and over on the right hand side is where you'll get your effects and presets. Down below is where the timeline will pop up, but that will only come in when we've given it a composition. So first of all, make a composition. So you can click here, or we go up to the top and go new composition. I'm going to call this intro, and I'm going to work on HDTV 1080-24. You can choose a different frame rate if you need to add video or if you've worked on anything else, but coming from Dragon Frame, I work on 24 frames a second in there, so I'm matching it here with the 24 preset. And again, frame rate there. Just going to accept the default of 10 seconds, so that's the seconds there, and then that's the frames. Call it something sensible and say OK. So now we've got something on our timeline with 10 seconds, or it'll say 9:23 because it counts 0 as the first frame. So they've got that with your timeline scrubber to go backwards and forwards. When we start to put stuff in, we'll get some layers down here, and like I said before, this is the preview. But now we've got our composition set up, and you can check your settings here, 1920 by 1080, running at 24 frames a second. Once we've got that set up, we need to save this so we don't lose any work. And I'm going to save it into the same folder that I've got all of my files in. There we go. So now it's all saved up. So make sure yours is like mine, running into the D drive, not working across the server. Alright, so now we're going to bring in a few different elements. So double click in the project panel, find our folder, and we need to bring in the sky. So Sky 01 in the images folder. We'll only see it as footage. Here it is, and if we look at the numbers up here, you can see it's bigger than our project setting, and that's because I want to move my sky across in the background of my other elements. So I'm going to drag that down onto the timeline, so it's down on here, and if we zoom out, and that's Control minus, you can see how much bigger it is. So I need to put it into a starting position, so if I click in here, I can just move it over. And if I want to scale it up slightly, just grab a corner, hold down Shift to constrain it, and then I'm going to start it here, and then I'm going to move it the other side so that it just moves along, trying to fake like it's live footage. So I need to change my position, and I need to start keyframing. So whilst I've got this highlighted, if I press P, that's a shortcut for the position. So here is the little stopwatch, and to make keyframes you need to turn this on. So if this is grey, you can move it all you want, but you're never going to make any animation because you're not going to be keyframing, you're just going to be moving the media about. So let's turn it on, and then in here you should see there's a little diamond popped up, and that is our first keyframe on frame 0. So I'm going to take this all the way to the end, 9:23, right at the end, and then I'm going to move my media, and as soon as I move it, another keyframe pops up down in the timeline there, and if we scrub backwards and forwards, you'll see it move across, and you can also see these numbers change. So if you think you've put a keyframe in and it should be doing something, if your numbers aren't moving, you haven't got another keyframe for the media to move to, so it doesn't know what it's doing. Okay, So you might have turned this on, but unless you've got 2 keyframes in that timeline, you're not going to see any movement. And there it goes. If you press a space bar, that will play it through for you. There we go. Right, so on top of our sky, I'm going to bring in a bike and some grass. So let's bring our bike in, and our bike is in the Photoshop file folder, bike. Now what we need to do with that is I want to bring that in as a composition of its own, and I can say retain layer sizes, or I can just say as a composition within my settings. So I'm just going to say as a composition within my settings, and we're going to allow that editable layer style. That is fine. So this has now made a bike composition for us. So if we look at the icon for the intro, which is what we're looking at down here, this is a little red and green icon, and the bike is now also in a composition of its own. So if I double click it, what happens is it opens our bike composition, and I get all of the layers that I had in Photoshop in my composition, so I can now edit them and play with them in here. So what I'm now going to do is nest a composition within a composition. So I'm going to put my bike on top of my sky, otherwise I won't be able to see it. If I put it here, can't see it because it's behind the sky, so let's make sure it's above the sky, and there's my bike, and it's a little bit big. So the first thing I'm going to do is scale it down, and again a shortcut to get to scale is S, and then the scale turns up. Now I don't need to keyframe this, so I'm just going to alter the value, so I'm just going to turn it down. You could too type in a number and that will accept it, and just move it down. So I'll move it down to here, and I'm going to move this across the sky. So again I need to press, while I've got this highlighted, while I've got this layer highlighted, press P for position. You see that change? And this is my starting position, so I need to turn my keyframe on, but I need to make sure I'm at the beginning. Turn my keyframe on because I want this to be my starting place over on the right hand side, all the way to the end, and then I'm going to, yeah, I can just move it. Let's just move it all the way across. So what should happen is that should now zoom across as our sky moves. There we go. And for this final composition, what I want to do is just want to put some grass in the foreground so we hide these trees. So again, double click in the project bin, and we're just going to pop the grass in. We'll just import that as footage straight because it doesn't need to be a composition. Oh, it's coming as a composition, that's fine. Put that on top, and there we go, we've got some lovely grass. So let's see if that fits. So we might need to move the grass down. I want to hide those bits of tree, but I want my bike to kind of look like it's moving through the grass. So that's quite good. So now the key thing about working compositions within compositions, now I've got my, essentially my end movement right, I'm now going to go into the bike composition, and I'm going to make the wheels move. So down here, not in the intro composition, but in the bike composition, got all these layers, and I'm just going to zoom in a bit because I need to be able to see anchor points. We're going to make the wheels turn. So on wheel left, click on wheel left, and let's see where the anchor points are sitting. So if we click on that, it looks like the anchor point is right over here, and that's no good. We need the anchor point to turn around the midpoint here. So we need to change that. So if we go up to our anchor point tool, click on it, make sure it's blue, and then grab the anchor point that's here and put it right in the middle there. And on the wheel left, we're going to hit R, which is shortcut for rotation. We're going to turn the rotation on, and we're going to ask it to go -4 rotations. You can do it by degree, or you can do it by number of rotations. So and what I've done there is I've not got any movement because I haven't put a second keyframe in, but no fear, what I'm going to do is I'll move that to the end, because you can move keyframes all the way to the end, make sure it doesn't fall off. Turn it there, make sure I'm in the right place. Here we are, 9:23, keyframe in the right place. Come back to the beginning, and I'm just going to type in 0 to start it. So now our wheel should move, and it's moving around that anchor point that we set up. So now we just need to do the same for the second wheel. So make sure it's selected, click R, home to come back right to the beginning, set it up a keyframe all the way to the end, and -4 looked good to me, so I'm just going to type in -4 again, -4, and now if we hit home, which brings our playhead back to the beginning. So that's what happens if you don't move your anchor point. So if we go in and bring that to the beginning, and we get hold of our wheel right, and we get our anchor point, and we move our anchor point here right into the middle. Now if we press play, round it goes. So that's the key thing about moving the anchor point. It will rotate around that, so make sure it's in the right place. So let's have a look and see what it looks like. So if we have it come through, there we go. There's our bike, and the wheels are turning. Okay, I want to go back to the bike, and then what I want to do is I want to parent this pedal. Make sure you're on the selection tool if you want to select stuff. If you're ever on the hand tool, you'll find you can't do anything. What's going on? Make sure you've got the selection tool. Okay, so now I'm going to take the pedal, which is this tiny little bit here, and I might need to change its anchor point to be on the pedal. What I need to do is I need to parent that to the turning. So the turning is essentially the crank. And again, I need to change the anchor point on the crank to right in the middle, right there. Okay, so that when I now put the rotation on, hit R, rotation on, keyframe at the beginning, all the way to the end, and put another keyframe in, -4, hit home, come back to the beginning, and there you go. You've got the pedals turning around at exactly the same speed as the wheels. And if we go back into our main composition, hit home, which brings us to the beginning of the playhead, don't forget, hit spacebar to play. There we go. There's our bike, moving along, looking pretty good. And that's a few basic things with keyframing in After Effects, layers and compositing things within other compositions. Next bit, if we want to add to that, I just want to show you how Photoshop works really well with After Effects. So if we open up bike in Photoshop, and just wait for that to open, what we can do is we can alter one of the layers, and it should dynamically update in After Effects. So let's wait for that to open. We've got all our different layers named exactly the same as they are in After Effects. I'm going to take my paint dropper tool here and select a nice bright colour. And if I'm on the bike frame and I drop that in, it should go pink. Let's go a little bit crazy. Let's put some more colours on the mudguards. Get that one. Like it to match, so put the saddle as green as well. So let's press save on that. Let's quit out of Photoshop. And if we go back into After Effects, it's automatically updated it. So Photoshop and After Effects work really, really well. Obviously you could now put another bike in here. You could make it go slightly faster, although you couldn't alter the rotation. But if you wanted to put another bike in here, you can just go right click on it, duplicate, and then you'll get all of the same values. So if I twist this down, you can see all the different things we've done. So it's still got the keyframes we had before. So all I want to do is I want it to come in later and finish earlier. So what's going to happen is that one's going to come in and it's going to zoom past the other one. So if I press the space bar, the other one should come in and race past. So we're using that composition to do different things to it, which is why I've put it in a composition to start with. And obviously you could put more layers of grass in, you could alter the colour of the sky, but I just want to show you how you do an adjustment layer. So new, so I right clicked here, new, adjustment layer, and then you could do all sorts of different things, but a really easy one so you can see exactly what happens is I'm going to put black and white effect on my adjustment layer, and it's going to make everything underneath it black and white. Okay, so if I bring my grass above the adjustment layer, it's now in colour. So if you need to make alterations that you want to affect many layers, use an adjustment layer to make those changes. And if you need anything to be outside of the adjustment layer, bring it on top. So make sure you've got your layer hierarchy in the right order.